So Adesanya versus Romero. Adesanya is a better striker. He's got better stand-up. He's good at movement. He's a bit longer, bit lankier. Okay? He's also a lot younger. Romero's more power, great wrestling, great knockout power, and very, very tough, hard to knock out, hard to actually finish. So let's talk about Adesanya first. Now, he had a massive career in kickboxing. He was 75-5 as kickboxing. And then I think he went 5-1 as a pro in kickboxing, moved into the UFC 2 years ago. And now at UFC, he is, I think, 18-0. He moved up the ranks really quickly. 2 years now he's champion. But he does get hit. So that's one point to consider before we look at Romero. So let's look at Adesanya. 18-0, as I said. The Nigerian Nightmare, I believe that's Kamaru Usman. So Adesanya is probably just the Nigerian, bad dream, not nightmare. Better height, better reach, and everything he's had, all his finishes have either been a decision or a knockout. So yeah, the fight isn't really that hard to break down, especially when you're talking about Adesanya. The only way Adesanya is going to win, basically, is if he knocks him out. And I don't see him knocking him out, really, because Soldier of God is way too tough to be knocked out, especially by someone who's not necessarily a knockout artist. So really, Adesanya's only chance of winning is to go the full 5 rounds, make it a boring fight, strike and move, and maybe not a boring fight, but just make it, very sort of technical fight, and drag it out for the full 5 rounds. That's the only way Adesanya, I can see him winning. So moving on to Romero. Now, he is a motherfucking beast. If you could say, all right, I want any genetics out of all the UFC fighters, who's it going to be? Probably him. Maybe John Jones, because he's so tall and lanky for the division. But Romero would be up there as one of the best genetics in the UFC, in all sports. Like, if you just look at him, he would have been one of those child babies, those children that had abs, those kids they see bodybuilding. That was Romero when he was like 7, probably. So let's look at it. 13-3. The most important thing when you're looking at that record is that he's only had 3 losses. All 3 of the losses have been by decision, and actually a split decision, probably that he won. But the fighters that he was going up against, I think, they were more well known, or I feel like the UFC wanted them to win more. Whichever way you look at it. Where are we? Costa and Whitaker. Lost twice to Whitaker. And you could say probably that in those fights, Romero actually won. So technically, you could almost say Romero's undefeated. But if I want to break it down simply, Romero, I don't think will be able to knock out Adesanya, because I think Adesanya is going to play a smart game, and he's going to move he's going to play it very safe. So if I was in Romero's coaches, and if I was in his team, I would say, mate, look, you never grapple. All you do is knock people out, but you're an Olympic medalist. So why don't we just try going all out and wrestling this guy and going for the takedowns and mixing up the striking with a lot more wrestling than we normally do. I think the reason he doesn't do the wrestling is because Yoel doesn't want to get tired, and because he's carrying so much muscle. And if you look at this photo of him, because he's carrying so much muscle, he doesn't want to do the wrestling to get too tired, which then makes him more susceptible to being knocked out. And he gets tired easy. So that's the reason he doesn't do the wrestling. But if you look at the ways that he could win, he could wrestle him and mount him. He could potentially knock him out. There's a small chance that he can knock him out. If Adesanya gets cocky and gets into that real close striking range with him, then there's a chance there. But the one thing that no one that I've heard about is talking about with Romero is that he doesn't necessarily, or he hasn't shown that he has that X factor to win the big championship, to win the gold belt. And we saw that in his Olympic run, where he came silver, didn't get the gold in Olympics. I don't know the detail there, but that was the facts. He got silver in the Olympics. Then fast forwarding to his UFC career, he's never been a champion. He's almost 43 or 42 and never been champion. He had 2 shots against Whitaker and maybe even another shot that I'm not thinking of. But he's had chances to become champion and he hasn't been able to close the show. So the biggest advantage I see with Israel is that he's got the X factor. He's got that winning mentality, that winner's factor, where when he was up against adversity, and not his last fight with Whitaker, but the fight before that, he was up against adversity, and he was probably even coming close to a decision or even losing into the 5th round, and he said, I'm willing to die, and he went out there and finished the opponent in the 5th round. So to do that takes the X factor. That's something special that you can dig deep, the heart, whatever you want to call it. Israel Adesanya has that. And Yoel Romero hasn't shown that he's had that. He's shown all these other things. If you had to pick a fighter on PlayStation and pick your favorite fighter with all the, power 10, agility 10, speed 10, endurance not so much 10, but if you had to pick a fighter, he would probably have all the physical attributes that you would want, but he's just lacking that certain something. And this is going to be his last chance, I think, to prove it, that he can become UFC champion. So anyway, guys, if I had to make a pick for the fight, I would say it's going to be Israel Adesanya over the 5 rounds, just playing it very, very carefully and very technical fight, similar to when he fought. If you go back and watch Israel versus the Spider Anderson Silva, it was a boring fight, but he went the full 5 rounds, or 3 rounds for that fight perhaps. But he was very technical and he kept pulling back, not going into harm's way, not putting himself out there too much. So I'd say the way it's going to go, Israel over 5 rounds. Cheers, guys.